I get the pleasure of introducing our guest and speaker today, which I got to know her a little bit from picking her up from the airport. She has joined Toastmasters back in January 1991 in Toronto, Canada. While working in IT at a major Canadian bank, her boss recommended that she join, and the resulting increase in her skills and confidence did wonders for her career and her life. As a Toastmaster, she has enjoyed many experiences, including participating in contests, writing articles for the Toastmasters magazine, and presenting at international conventions. Her journey has led her to serve as area, division, and district director roles, and she is currently serving as the 2022 to 2024 International Director on the Toastmasters Board of Directors. She calls herself a Toastmasters evangelist, as she ardently shares the message of Toastmasters with anyone who will listen. Whether starting new clubs, inspiring others to take on new steps in their journey, she continues to inspire the passion and potential unleashed in others. In 2015, she was awarded the District 60 George Keenan Award for exemplary service. Her experiences in Toastmasters led her to a full-time career as a speaker, trainer, and consultant. She's currently the president of Athena Executive Education, a consulting firm that helps unleash greatness in leaders and teams. She has over 25 years of experience working with leaders in both Canada and the U.S. She has a master's degree in leadership and is the author of the Ruby Report, How Organizations Can Profit by Promoting Women Leaders. She and her husband have 4 sons, 2 granddaughters, and 2 dogs, and they share time between Ontario and Nova Scotia and Canada. Her description today is to discover the keys of transforming your life through the power of human motivation, inspired by groundbreaking research, to empower personal growth, elevate skills and excellence, and find the deep meaning and purpose as you unleash the potential in yourself and others. You will leave this session with renewed energy and be inspired and equipped to make a lasting impact. Her speech title is Make the Most of Your M.A.P. So I'm going to introduce our speaker today, Region 6 International Director, Dawn Frall.
Gillian was a bit of a problem child. At the age of 7, her mother, really not knowing what to do with her because the teachers had been complaining about her, that everybody at the school had been complaining about her. She just didn't know what to do with Gillian. So she took Gillian to the doctor. And Gillian sat there in the doctor's office on her hands while she listened to her mother share with the doctor all of the complaints that the teachers and the principal had about her. She couldn't focus. She couldn't sit still. She wouldn't do her homework. Now, you might think that the doctor would just diagnose Gillian with ADHD, give some medication, and everything would be fine. But Gillian was 7 years old in 1930. And ADHD wasn't a thing yet. And so the doctor listened and had watched Gillian and went over to Gillian and said, Gillian, I'm going to talk to your mom outside in the hallway. We're going to be right back. You just stay here. We'll be right back. As the doctor took Gillian's mother out into the hallway, he turned the radio on that was sitting on his desk. They walked out, closed the door, and observed Gillian through the window in the door. Talked a little bit to Mom in the hallway, and the doctor said, look at Gillian. Gillian was inside the room dancing up a storm to the song that was playing on the radio. The doctor said to Gillian's mom, she's not ill. She's a dancer. Now, how many of you have a dancer inside, hiding, wanting to come out And sometimes that dancer is mislabeled. It's something else, but you have a passion that has not yet been discovered and has not yet emerged. That's what today is all about. It's about trying to figure out what is your inner dancer and unleash it. But not only your inner dancer, but the people in your district, the people in your clubs, the people in your areas and your divisions. What can help us to be motivated? How can we unleash the greatness in ourselves and in other people? You recently had a conference where the theme was Let's Get Reacquainted. Now, I don't know about you, but for the last 3 years, I have not felt very in touch with my Toastmasters family. And I love the fact that you had this theme, Let's Get Reacquainted, because it's time. It's time to come back together in person, virtually, really to have that reconnection, because connections are extremely powerful when it comes to human motivation. So I love that you're really relaunching, reinvigorating, and reconnecting by what it is that you're doing in the district. Now, when I asked your leaders, what's going on in District 63? How are things going? 2 key things came out of our conversation as far as challenges. Challenge number 1 was membership. Welcome to the world. Around the world, we're struggling in our organization with membership. And this is a picture from a club in Toronto where we tried very hard. This is the entire club in this video, in this image. And so how do we, except for me, because I'm taking the picture, always the one behind the camera, never gets in there. Right? How do you reinvigorate a club that's only got low membership? So that was one of the key challenges that we talked about. Second key challenge was pathways adoption levels. I got to tell you, I'm a little old school. I think Bert had used the word dinosaur in our conversation a little earlier. I put myself in the dinosaur category, having been a member of Toastmasters for 32 years. You know what? Pathways is different. There's no doubt about it. But how can we use pathways to really invigorate, reinvigorate, re-inspire, and reignite what's going on in District 63? What I hope today is that in our short time together, we will talk about what are some things we can do to motivate people, to build clubs, to get people doing pathways, and to really have put District 63 on the map. On what map? Because aren't you already on the Toastmasters map? Yes, you are. But let's get you on the map at the top. How do we get District 63 and the amazing people in this amazing district to be re-energized, reinvigorated, and reconnected so that we're all achieving our goals? So the idea for creating energy today is, we'll talk about the challenges. All right, 3 things I'm going to talk about today to help you make the most of your map. M.A.P, mastery, autonomy, and purpose. When we identify what it is that helps us be successful, what helps to motivate us, these are the 3 things. I'll show you where this all comes from, because as you heard in the introduction, this does come from groundbreaking research. And I'll show you that resource at the end. So let's start with mastery. First of all, well, what is mastery? Well, mastery is the desire to get better at something that you love, something that you really care about, something that is fun. Imagine Gillian, when she was 7 years old, just wanted to dance. That's why she couldn't sit still. That's what she loved. That's what she wanted to do. What do you find fun? When you think about, you know what, if I were to win, can't even say win $1 million anymore, because $1 million doesn't, really doesn't. If you're to win $1 billion and you just wanted to have fun, what would you do? What would you pick? What kinds of things would you spend your life and your energy doing? That's what we're talking about when it comes to mastery. Now, 3 things. And if you want, go ahead, take a picture of any of my slides. I have given the slides to Ahmad and he'll be posting them somewhere. I've given permission to share the slides. So if you don't want to take notes, don't feel as though you need to, because you'll have all of the slides. So 3 things: nurturing a growth mindset, looking at the education program as a path to mastery, and embracing challenges and overcoming them. So when you think about being really, really good at something, how is it that you can think about what life and Toastmasters and your work, all of the things, your family, the things that you do, what is it exactly, this growth mindset? Well, a fixed mindset says, well, I have the brain cells that I was born with, and my destiny has already been laid out ahead of me, and whatever it is, there's, nothing I can do about it. But a growth mindset says, no, I have infinite possibilities. I have the ability to learn more. I have the ability to grow more. And if I can't do it today, or if I don't know it today, or if I don't know what it is today, well, I can figure it out, because my brain is this amazing machine that has the ability to grow and get stronger and bigger. And so when we think about not being limited by what's right in front of us, not being limited by the things that life presents us with, the situations. Thinking about, well, what can I learn from this? How can I grow from these different kinds of experiences that I'm having? One of the great ways to grow is through the Toastmasters program. Now, I said a moment ago that I believe that the education program works. And I truly believe that. When you think about pathways, and I will say that one of the most common complaints that I hear about pathways is, how many times do I have to do my icebreaker? How many times do I have to fill out the communication style assessment? Do I really have to do the leadership style quiz again? Yes, yes, and yes! I love when people complain to me, really? I don't want to have to read you my icebreaker. I love it when people say that to me, because in my mind, I just want to grab you and shake you and say, do you realize what an opportunity this is? Because when you gave your icebreaker 3 months or 6 months or 3 years ago, as compared to today, you are an entirely different person. You have lived 3, 6 months, years. Tell me that you have not grown in some way, shape, or form over that time. Tell me you don't have a perspective. Tell me in that last 4-minute icebreaker that you gave us the full flavor of who you are. I'll bet you didn't. So today, by doing your icebreaker again, you have the opportunity to tell us a little bit more, to take a different spin, to be a little bit more creative. What have you done in the last little while? I don't know about you, but I'm a totally different person than pre-COVID. Anybody else online? Anybody over there? Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Where are you today? So yes, it is an amazing opportunity for people to get to know you, to get reacquainted. Let's get reacquainted. Give an icebreaker. What have you been doing? What have you been doing during COVID? I've been doing all kinds of things, and it would take me way more than 4 minutes in an icebreaker to tell you just what I've been going through in the last 3 years. And I'll bet every single one of you in this room and on that screen are in the exact same situation. We have all been through so much. And much of what we've been through is to face obstacles and challenges. What is it that we do when we're faced with those things that come up in our lives? When we have the ability to increase our skill and become masterful at something, it requires us to overcome challenges and obstacles. You can't get there without overcoming some challenges and some problems and some difficulties. You are who you are today because of what you have been able to do. And those fires that you've been able to fight through, those obstacles that you had to go up, down, around, or through. That's why you are the person that you are today. So when it comes to mastery and motivation, give people, including yourself, the opportunity to get really, really good at something that you love. Now, I love Toastmasters. And there are times where I wasn't sure where I was going to get the money to pay my dues, or I had young children and I only could belong to the Toastmasters club at work because going to an evening club was not an option when I got 4 kids running around. So how did I find the way, find the time? Because every time I went, I just loved it. At work, how many times, if you belong to a noontime club, perhaps at your company, where if you start at noon, 11:30 rolls around and you're like, oh, I'm just too busy. And then you look at the agenda and you think, oh, darn, I'm on the agenda. What if I cancel? What if I just tell them I'm going in a meeting? But if somebody sees me in the elevator, they'll know I'm not in a meeting. But I could just say that I'm on a busy project and I'm working. And you go through mentally a million excuses as to why you can't attend that meeting in a half an hour. And when you realize that your excuses are just not good enough, you pick up yourself at 5 to 12 and you head down to the meeting. And an hour later, you are so glad you went because you're re-energized. That's the power. That's what I got. In the middle of the week, in the middle of the day, we would come together at work in our Toastmasters club. And I'll bet you I was more productive and got more done on a Wednesday afternoon than any other day in the entire week because of the energy and the things that I experienced at my noontime Wednesday Toastmasters club. So find something that you want to be really, really good at. Find something that you love to do and become masterful. It is amazing how we can be motivated when we have something we love. I was convinced that the only thing I wanted to do ever was to write novels. These words came from somebody who you may think was, a brilliant author, and you would be right. J.K. Rowling, the author of the Harry Potter series, when she was a little girl, all she wanted to do was write. All she wanted to do was tell stories. When she was in college, she would sneak off from her classes, sit in the library, and just write stories. It's what she loved to do. And those words that she said, all I ever wanted to do was to write stories, to write novels, was what she said in 2008 at the Harvard School commencement address where she was invited to give it. Now, you want to talk about overcoming obstacles and overcoming challenges in life? Just Google J.K. Rowling and find out what she went through. Because what we see is we see her success. We see movies, we see novels, we see riches, we see standing up in at Harvard University giving a commencement address. That's what we see. But like the tip of the iceberg, we don't see all of the hard work that went on in order for her to come to that. But why was she so successful? Because she mastered what she loved. Her heart drew her to telling stories. And this is the result. So mastery, what are you good at? What is it that you would do and become fantastic at in order to have fun? But how can you do it your way? Autonomy. What is autonomy? A deep-seated desire to direct our own lives. Now, hands up, everybody who loves to be told what to do, when to do it, where to go, how to do something. But what? Oh, how come no hands? We don't typically, depending on what it is, like to be told what to do. We want to be masters of our own fate, our own destiny. We want to be able to choose to do things the way that we want to do them. And autonomy is about being able to jump out from the way everybody else is doing it and do it your own way. When it comes to autonomy, thinking about your Toastmasters journey, number one, own your journey. It's your journey. I want to talk about that a little bit more. And empower your members through autonomy. So first of all, own your journey. I think one of the greatest things about the Toastmasters adventure is that it's self-paced. I think the worst part about the Toastmasters journey is that it's self-paced. So I can easily come up with excuses as to why I can't, or I won't, or I don't have time, or this or that. I did more speeches the year that I was the vice president of education at my club than any other year. Why? You all know the answer. Because I had to fill in for cancellations. I'm responsible for the agenda. So if a speaker cancels, I got to step in. I got so many speeches done that year because as a corporate club, we oftentimes had people who legitimately or not, no judgment on my part, were not able to show up at the meeting. So owning your journey. When you think about what Toastmasters has to offer, think about how you can grow. Think about how you can learn and what you want out of the journey. Because each of us comes maybe for a similar reason, not always exactly the same, but we all come wanting something different. We all come wanting something unique based on our needs, based on our desires, based on our goals and where we want to go. So when you think about your journey, own it. If you want to go fast, go fast. If you want to go slow, go slow. If you want to do just speeches and no leadership, do that. If you want to do leadership and no speeches, well, I wouldn't suggest doing that. But think about what is it that you want, because as you go through the program, your goals will change. When I took on area director for the very first time all those years ago, what I wanted was a little check mark in a box so that I could get my DTM. That's why I took on area governor at the time, it was called. That's why I took the role. But when I got into the role and I realized what was available, when I realized how fun it was, I had mentors and people surrounding me to help me understand area director is one of the most incredible things that you can do on your journey. And I'm going to talk more about that in a moment. Empowering your members through autonomy. When I have conversations with people about pathways, and the conversation is, the first couple of levels, everything is the same. Think about how can you help the members in your club take responsibility for what their speaker's journey looks like. The Pathways projects are a guide. They're a guide. Be creative. Think differently. How can you create new insights out of the fact that you've done your communication style survey for the 4th time now? Well, how can you share something different? How can you look at that information with a new eyes, with a new heart, and share something different? My heart breaks when I hear an evaluator say, well, you were supposed to do this in this project because this is what the project says, and you did not do that. Therefore, I think you should redo this project. My heart breaks when I hear that because I believe that the projects are a guide. They're not a set of rules for what you must do. They're a platform. They're a framework. They're an opportunity for you to experience and learn and grow. And how each of us does that is entirely up to us. So if you have members in your club who maybe have been around for a while, like dinosaurs, as Bert and I will refer to. Big D, little d, I don't know, dinosaur. Been around, and you know what? Maybe not so happy about Pathways. Maybe resisting the fact that, I really like the legacy program. And you know what? There's lots of great things about the legacy program. How can you get people over that resistance hump about Pathways? Encourage them to embrace the learning, not the rules that Pathways presents, and think differently, think outside the box. If you're general evaluator at a meeting one day and the speech evaluator that day says, you didn't do exactly what the project asked, as general evaluator, part of your responsibility is to evaluate the evaluators, give feedback. So be brave. And as general evaluator, encourage all evaluators to think about using Pathways as a guide. And maybe when you begin to think that way and you encourage that and you get people in the club to embrace that kind of mindset when it comes to Pathways, maybe you'll see some of the resistance to Pathways melt away. How can we make it work for you? How can we make sure that things are happening so that you grow? You take ownership for your journey and you empower your members. I want to tell you about Michelle. I would love to tell you about Michelle. Michelle is so awesome. Michelle was a member of my very first Toastmasters club, so this corporate club that I was telling you about. Michelle worked in our building. We had a couple of thousand people that worked in the building, so we had, very large audience to draw from. Michelle joined our Toastmasters club, and she was terrified. She is the only person I have ever met who was more afraid to give a speech than me. She was terrified and struck with such stage fright, she didn't want to give her icebreaker. And you know what? In a year, she was with us for just over a year, Michelle never gave her icebreaker. She was too afraid. Now you may say, well, that's a failure story, Dawn. Why are you telling us the bad side? Oh, but wait. Michelle's journey was something entirely different. See, what we did was we convinced Michelle to be the sergeant at arms. And in our club, what we did was we had the sergeant at arms open up the meeting and introduce the toast. One year later. Good afternoon, fellow Toastmasters. Welcome to Front Street Speakers. We are glad that you're here today. Our Toastmaster today is the current program quality director and the incoming district director, M.A.P. Gillian. M.A.P. has worked here for this number of years. He does this and this in his job. He's the proud husband, uncle, does all of these things, and he is our Toastmaster for today. Please welcome M.A.P. Gillian. Michelle never gave her icebreaker. She never did a table topic. She never competed in a contest. But did Michelle grow? Wow, did she ever. It was incredible, the growth, because she owned her journey. And as a club, we empowered her to grow in the way that she needed to grow. So the journey does not need to be exactly what it says in the Pathways project. Let your people learn and grow and develop the way that they want to, because that autonomy will keep them motivated, will keep them inspired, and will keep them moving forward. So we have the M for mastery. We have A for autonomy. And the P in our M.A.P is purpose. What is purpose? Purpose is about serving a cause that's greater than ourselves. Why do you do what you do? Can you figure it out? Do you know? The number of times that I didn't want to, for whatever reason, go to my Toastmasters meeting, and yet my why, that inner desire, that burn to be better, to do better, to learn more, to connect with people, is what kept me going. And the things that I was learning inspired me, because what I realized was that I had this opportunity to do something that I absolutely loved. I discovered in myself the love to teach. Now, I was not a teacher. My first career was in finance, so I was a bean counter. My second career was in IT, and that was where my formal education came from. I talked to computers all day. And if it were not for my boss that you heard Ahmad allude to in my introduction, had it not been for my boss who said to me, Dawn, you have a problem. And if you want to continue in your career, see, I had recently been promoted and now had to go to meetings to represent my team. And when I got into those meetings, my brain was brilliant. My mouth was not connected to it. So when I would talk in meetings, gibberish came out, or I would get that, you know, that lump in your throat that just, you then start to cough and choke and you can't even breathe. So my boss was getting feedback about my performance in these meetings. And so we had a conversation. Ever had one of those conversations with your boss? And he said, Dawn, you've got a problem. And he said, if you want to go back and just be a programmer, you're more than welcome to do. Talk to computers all day, because I was good at that. But put me in a room with people, entirely different situation. He said, if you want to stay in the role that you're in, we need to do something about fixing your problem. We had 2 Toastmasters clubs at work, and he sent me, well, he suggested, but you know, when your boss suggests, you go. Right? So I went down to the Toastmasters meeting that day, and the rest is history. 32 and a half years later, I finally have overcome my inability to communicate in a group of people. When it comes to purpose and motivating others, Toastmasters can really help spark that deep sense of purpose, because it's through our speeches that sometimes we can actually figure out for ourselves, what is our purpose? Discovering how do your personal values align with Toastmasters, for me, it was an exact match. Everything that the Toastmasters organization represented made me feel welcome at home and a part of this incredible program. And when we are able to inspire our members to take part in the program and really find their unique purpose inside whatever it is that they're doing, now we have this awesome opportunity to motivate people. For me, I found it in Speechcraft. Our club, we had a co-op program at the bank where I worked, where we would bring in college and university students who were working on co-op programs for 3 months to work at the bank. As a part of that co-op program at the bank, Toastmasters Speechcraft was mandatory. That was amazing. But then as a club, we had to actually run all these Speechcrafts. So I remember our VP of Education came to my office one day and said, I need you to help out at the Speechcraft. Okay, what do you want me to do? I want you to do a speech evaluation. But I'm a brand new Toastmaster. I've never given an evaluation. And now you want me to go and like talk about and teach? No. I just want you to give a speech evaluation. But I've never done it before. Dawn. An evaluation of somebody's speech is merely your opinion of how that speech impacted you. Do you have an opinion? I got a lot of opinions. Have you ever listened to something on TV or, maybe in church or somewhere you've heard a speaker, a politician where you think, well, and you formed an opinion? Yeah, that's all I'm asking you to do. Go and listen to a 3 or 4 minute speech and just tell us what you think. Well, okay, if you think I can. So I went down to that Speechcraft and I gave my very first evaluation. And I sat there for the entire meeting for that Speechcraft program. And I found something that I loved to do, to teach. And I've been doing it ever since. Now, I think if I were to have an opportunity to come back and live my life all over again and do exactly what God put me on this planet to do, well, I would kind of want to be a helicopter pilot. But if I were to do what I really am meant to do, I would be a math teacher. I love to teach and I love numbers. I would be a math teacher. And it was through that Speechcraft experience that I found my love of teaching. And I've been doing it ever since. This is Rahul. One of the things that the Toastmasters program offers is this opportunity called Area Director. In my opinion, hands down, one of the greatest experiences you can have is by filling the role of Area Director. Now, I remember hearing Daniel Rex. So Daniel Rex is the CEO of Toastmasters International. I remember him saying years ago, the single most important role in our organization is Area Director. That's the person who is the conduit, the liaison between the club and Toastmasters International. And so you have this opportunity to do a lot of things. Yes, help the club be successful, but also to learn how to be a leader. Now, when I first started teaching leadership, now, just between us, when I first started teaching leadership, I had never held a leadership role in my life. I had never been a formal paid leader, but I had been a Toastmaster. I had been an area director. I had been a club president. I had been a VP of education. I had been a Speechcraft coordinator. These are all leadership experiences that when I went for that interview to get a job to teach leadership, that's what I talked about. All the things that I learned. And I remember years ago writing an article, a newsletter article that says the greatest skill is to learn to be a leader in a volunteer organization where you don't hold power over their paycheck. If you want to learn to be a leader, if you want to be a better leader in your family, if you want to be a better leader in your community, take on the role of area director, because that is the place where you just have this incredible opportunity to, in so many ways, impact people. When I was district director, Rahul became one of my area directors. I have never seen somebody so excited to get a home club of the area director ribbon in my whole entire life. He wanted pictures. He was dancing around. He was so excited to be area director. This is why I am a Toastmasters evangelist, because this is the power that this program has to develop, inspire people. Because there was a purpose in his mind to do something, to serve a cause greater than himself. For me, to serve a cause greater than myself. As international director, I think about why am I in the role that I am in? And there's really two reasons. The first reason was one of the things I said in my campaign speech when I was in Nashville last year, campaigning and trying to be elected for the role that I'm now in. So let me share with you a clip from that campaign speech that talked about why I wanted to be an international director in this organization.
And I see an organization where my great-grandchildren will stand on a stage and say to their audience, I am a Toastmaster because my great-grandmother inspired me to be.
One of my whys is because I want this organization to be around for another 100 years. I want my great-grandchildren to talk about being a Toastmaster, to have gone through the experience, the life-transforming experience that I have gone through because of this organization. I want that available for my family as well. That's my why number one. My why number two, prior to this speech, this was on a Friday, I had arrived in Nashville on Tuesday. Now, remember I said when I was talking about Michelle that Michelle was the only person I had ever met who was more afraid to speak in public than me. You may think that that's an exaggeration, but I assure you it is not. As a highly introverted person, as an extremely shy child, there was a thick shell that I needed to come out of. And it was Toastmasters that helped me to do that. But those fears don't actually go away. We've all got butterflies, and all we can do is teach those butterflies to fly in formation. This speech was on Friday. I arrived in Nashville on Tuesday. If you were there, you would have seen me walking around the beautiful Gaylord Opryland Resort, talking to myself for 4 days, practicing this speech. I was so nervous about the showcase. I hadn't eaten for 4 days. It's the first vacation I ever went on where I lost weight. At Friday night, I finally enjoyed a full meal. And this is after 32 years in Toastmasters. What we don't know about any of us is what's going on inside. And as we heard earlier in an evaluation this morning, if you were here, if you don't tell anybody what's going on, nobody knows. That's why we say, don't apologize if you mess up in a speech. Just keep going. What is your why? Why do you belong to Toastmasters? Is it because of what you can get? Yes, it is. But why do you stay? For almost all of us, it's because of what you can give back. But you know what's so amazing? Is that to give is to receive tenfold. So the more I give, the more I get. So I truly can say, I'm still in it for me. So what's your why? When you think about motivating people, mastery, autonomy, and purpose, these three concepts come from the groundbreaking research done by Daniel Pink. And you can find it in his book called Drive, The Truth About What Truly Motivates Us. And it's amazing. If you do not have this book on your bookshelf, I strongly encourage you. A book summary or the book itself or audio, if you like to listen to books, it is absolutely worth 10 times the price for what you'll get out of it. And this mastery, autonomy, and purpose comes from Daniel Pink. Now, the other thing I talked about was growth mindset. And that comes from the book by Carol Dweck called Mindset, the second book that I would strongly encourage you to have on your bookshelf. Because these two books can literally change the trajectory of your life. Why? Because they can change literally the trajectory of your thinking. And if we're going to be successful in life, at work, in Toastmasters, we need to be able to think differently. In our organization, we want to ignite growth. as an organization, we have been in a decline for a number of years. Toastmasters International was hit hard by COVID. Thankfully, we were able to survive because we were able to take our clubs online. It's time to continue to rebuild and to grow. In order to do so, we must think differently. We look at a problem and we think, how can this possibly work? There is no solution. But we need to think outside the wheels. We need to look at our problems. Low membership in our clubs, low pathways adoption rates, hybrid meetings not working, technology is a challenge. We need to think differently, because only when we think differently can we come up with a solution. Oh, there was some delay on that. I don't know if you saw it. But the track, the frame doesn't actually turn. It's a track, like a tractor wheel that runs on a track. How do you think differently? I'm going to give you a little bit of homework. The homework is to Google Team Sky. Team Sky is a story. Well, I'm not going to give it away too much, but it's a story that comes from James Clear. James Clear wrote a book called Atomic Habits. It may be one that you have on your bookshelf as well. In Atomic Habits, one of the things he talks about is the power of tiny gains. If you become 1% better every day, at the end of 365 days, you are 37 times, not 37%, 37 times better on December 31st than you were on January 1st. The amazing power of compounding. So what does that have to do with Toastmasters? In order to ignite your clubs, in order to ignite growth, in order to apply the M.A.P, it's not about doing some amazing astronomical giant thing. It's about doing tiny little things a little bit better every single day, because that's how we gain and build momentum. So your homework is to Google Team Sky. There was a quote at the club meeting I was at yesterday. Somebody gave this quote from George Eliot, novelist. It's never too late to be what you might have been. I loved that, because isn't that what Toastmasters is all about? It doesn't matter how old you are when you join the organization. It doesn't matter which club. It doesn't matter what your journey looks like, fast, slow, or something else. It's never too late. And District 63, there's 6 weeks left in this Toastmasters year. It is never too late. One club became distinguished yesterday. What club is going to become distinguished tomorrow? You're doing speechathons at Harpeth View, getting more speeches, also at TGL, doing more speeches. What is it that you can do in the last 6 weeks to finish strong, to make sure that members are achieving their goals? Because that is what is really the most important. To come together, to get reacquainted, to get reignited, and to be everything that we can be. Remember Gillian, that 7-year-old in trouble? Well, Gillian loved to dance. She had inside her a burning desire to express herself through dance. She found her purpose at a very young age. That doctor said to her mother, Gillian's not ill, she's a dancer. And he said to her mother, send her to a dance school. And she did. She sent Gillian to a school that had dance as a huge part of the program. Gillian came home after starting at that school, super excited. She said to her mom, I love this school because there's kids just like me, kids who can't sit still. Because to learn and to grow and to be all she could be, Gillian had to do it her way. And what that meant was her mom had to send her to a place where she could be who she was meant to be. Now, you know Gillian. You may not recognize the story, or maybe you don't know the name, but you all know Gillian. Gillian Lynn was a master at her craft. She went to the London Ballet School, became a principal dancer at the London Ballet, at the London Opera House, and she was the choreographer for two of the longest lasting shows on Broadway, Cats and Phantom of the Opera. She lived an incredible life. Why? Because she found her purpose. She was able to do it her way, and she became a master doing something that she loved. And the whole world benefited. We have that opportunity as Toastmasters to find what it is that we love, to do it our own way, and to let the whole world know as we become masters at our craft. So what I ask for each of you is to make the most of your map. Find it for yourself. Find it for the people in your club.
What did you do in the beginning of your journey to push you along so that you could then get to these bigger things?
Yeah. So fantastic question. I would say that that's probably the question of the day. So I would say a couple of key things that I did. Number one is around the autonomy idea is that for the first probably 5 years of my Toastmasters life, I wrote out my speech word for word like a script and I read it. 5 years, probably, at least 5 years. And my evaluator would give me feedback like, oh, you shouldn't read your speech and you need to give more eye contact and all those things that you would expect. And I'll tell you what, I got great at giving a speech, reading it and making eye contact. I can read a script today. I can read a script, an entire speech, and you would never know that I'm reading because I had so much practice at doing it. But you know what? My club allowed me to do that. And that, I think, kept me in Toastmasters. The second part of my answer is that I really learned how my brain works. So I now have a process whereby I structure my speeches. And even with this one, I did the exact same thing. I always have notes. So highly introverted, I need notes. I rarely do a speech. And that's probably why I was so darn afraid of that 2 minutes on stage in Nashville, because I didn't have any notes. I never go anywhere without notes. I always know exactly, even my notes even have notes because this fits exactly how my brain works. For me, I need structure. And when I have that structure, I know that no matter what happens, I can stick to the structure. So essentially, the speech was really 3 things, right? Mastery, autonomy, and purpose. I added a little bit in, and I've got a closing piece because I'm here as an official visit for international director. So I've got a final sort of closing piece. But I know no matter what happens, all I need to remember is MAP, M-A-P, MAP. Mastery, autonomy, purpose. Mastery, I love to teach. Autonomy, icebreaker. Do it 15,000 times. Purpose, speechcraft. I love to, right? And that's all I have to remember. And then what that person told you before, just keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. Now I'm actually able to fill in the gaps. You know, could I do a speech without notes? Maybe. But would it be my best? No, because I'd be so darn terrified that I would forget something. Because from the very first day that I joined Toastmasters, my big problem was that I would go blank. Just And now I could go blank, but instead of panicking, I'll say, oh, there it goes. It just flew right out of my brain. Okay, come on back. Come on back. Right, got it. Now I can do that. Before I couldn't. So for me, it's about understanding how my brain works, making sure that I have that structure that I can follow and experience in being able to fill in the gaps. To me, this is a use it or lose it skill. That's why I will never get out of Toastmasters. Because I see people who've been in Toastmasters go and, leave and then come back, to visit and do a table topic. And they're like, really? You used to be a Toastmaster? I think you need to come back. Because I believe this is a use it or lose it skill. So I just keep on keeping on. So I don't know if that's helpful.
How can we make sure that the newer members that come in, I don't want to say are sticky, but that they understand what they're going to get from Toastmasters if they stick it out, if they keep going. So how do we get that from us? We are the people who are the choir preaching to the non-choir, I guess.
Yeah.
How do we do that?
Yeah. So fantastic question. So the biggest thing I believe that we can do as members to increase the retention tenure of our members, because currently the average Toastmaster stays 18 to 24 months. I would love, as international director, my dream would be to take that average tenure from 2 years to 5 years. Imagine the difference that we could make in people's lives, because I can tell you what I learned in my first 18 months, compare that to what I learned in my first 5 years, not even comparable. If we could get people to stay and stick around. So I believe a lot of it has to do with being able to talk about the benefits and the value proposition much more successfully. I do a lot of coaching women leaders as an example. And I say to every single woman on the planet, you need Toastmasters. I don't care how good of a speaker you think you are, you need Toastmasters. Because there's not a person on the planet that doesn't suffer from imposter syndrome or that, lack of confidence or self-doubt. We all do, right? How do you overcome that? Well, what's the greatest benefit of belonging to Toastmasters? Self-confidence is the greatest benefit. So what are the stories that we can tell? For me, it's keeping my promotion at work and being able to, sort of talk to people at work. I had another, Michelle. That's why I tell the Michelle story, because there's so many people who would think, that's just an abysmal failure. But she came out of her shell. It gave her confidence to then continue on. I knew a woman who was the mother of a severely disabled daughter. And she went through a speechcraft kind of experience, and in her graduation speech talked about the fact that previous to that moment, if she would hear people talking about, people something about, disabilities, she wouldn't know what to say, and she would just back away and not say anything. She said after that, she would now speak up and say, well, actually, as the mother of a severely disabled daughter, here's what a day in my life is like. So actually, maybe you don't understand, what it's like. But before, she would never say anything, and she would just seethe with anger and frustration. Those kinds of benefits. It's not just about, giving a toast at somebody's wedding or, giving a eulogy at somebody's funeral. What are the benefits? And so get your members, maybe you'd have a table topics session where it's testimonials. What is the greatest benefit that you've gotten out of your time as a Toastmaster? How, who do you know who have, benefited? Read the Toastmaster magazine and pull things out, maybe as a Toastmaster of the day, pull things out of the Toastmasters magazine, because there's always something in there, some nugget that somebody has done something somewhere. And tell those success stories. Because when I hear something that I need, I'm motivated to stay. If you can get that, I want it too. Yeah, so personally, I think VP of Education is the most important role in a Toastmasters club. It really, truly is. So when you are electing your VP of Education for your club, make sure that it's somebody who, has the energy and the passion for the program to actually do it. Now, sometimes you end up with a warm body in a seat, right? I mean, that happens. In that case, have a team around. So maybe one person is responsible for the agenda for that day. Another person on the VP of Ed team is responsible for keeping track of members' educational goals and having a conversation with each member twice a year about, what do you want to accomplish? Having, a third person on the team take another part. Maybe it's sort of managing like a 3-month agenda. So sharing the duties, because it's a lot of work. It's the most amount of work. Number 2 is have the president of your club be the cheerleader. So a part of the VP Ed team, have the president be the cheerleader. At the end of every meeting, the president stands up and talks about and celebrates something that a member has done. People love to be celebrated. People love to be appreciated. People love to get Smarties. Like, what's your Smarties? Right? What's the thing? Because now, probably several of you are thinking, well, geez, how many more Smarties has she got in there? And can I think of a question? Can I think of a question before she runs out of Smarties? It motivates people. As a VP of Ed, you always want, and you should ask every senior member in your club to always have a back pocket speech, because you never want a meeting where there's no speeches. If guests come, they need to be able to see the education program in action. So for the expectation at my club when I was VP of Ed that year is the VP of Ed is responsible for filling the gaps in the agenda, whether you find somebody to do it or you do it yourself. And that's why I gave so many speeches that year, because I was constantly filling in. So every senior member in your club should have a back pocket speech. And one final thing is put people on the agenda. Don't wait for people to volunteer for roles. It's better to add somebody to the agenda and have them say, oh, sorry, I can't, or I'm not available that day. If you use Free Toast in your club, you have the ability, every member has the ability to go to every single meeting and say, yes, I'm going to be there. No, I'm not going to be there, or uncertain. So if you get people in your club to fill that in, then as the VP of Ed, you can then look at the grid, see who is either uncertain or yes, and plug them in. Plug them in. Who are the Toastmasters? Who are the general evaluators? And who are the table topics master? And make sure that at minimum, all of those are filled in.
Everybody stalls. I've sat across from Toastmasters who were stalled, who were frustrated, who were angry. You did too. How did you get past that?
Yeah, that you definitely would get a major prize if you were here, because that's a fantastic question. Understand, especially for people who've been around for a while, understand that in your Toastmasters journey, there are seasons. There are seasons. There are times where you're really, really excited and you're learning and you're growing, and maybe you're participating in contests and you're all in. 3 months later, 6 months later, a year later, 2 years later, you could be in a slump. There were a number of years where I took the summer off. Our club didn't, and some clubs do take the summers off. Our club did not take the summers off, but I did. And I found that having a 2-month break from Toastmasters was helpful in rejuvenating me, re-energizing me. Remembering that whatever speed you go is the right speed for you. I got my first DTM in 4 years. At that time, that was the minimum. There was a membership requirement. You had to be a member for 4 years. So I would have finished it even a little bit earlier, but I wasn't yet a member. So for 4 years, took my second DTM. It took me 24 years to get my second one. 24 years. There was all kinds of things going on in my life. right? And Toastmasters was not always the top of the pile. A lot of times Toastmasters was very, very bottom of my list of priorities. And then I just finished up Pathways DTM. So I think that took me about 3 years. So understand that in your Toastmasters journey, there are seasons. If, as VP of Ed or members of a club, if you have somebody who's going through a low season, don't make them feel bad because they're not getting speeches. If they don't want to be put on the agenda, don't put them on the agenda. Encourage them, invite them to come. Sometimes people want to come to a meeting and just sit and watch and don't even want to participate in table topics. Allow people to pass if they're called on for table topics. Make it part of the culture so that if I want to come, I stay connected and I'm just, my brain is like mush and I just don't want to do anything except just be in your presence, then that's okay. So I would say I don't know if that's helpful, Kurt, but
Yes.
really helping, from the autonomy piece, right? Really understanding what's the best solution for that person at that moment. And think about seasons. You can go to my website. I have 2 websites. One is very, very old and one is newer. So donfrall.com is the old one. The new one in my current consulting business where I work with executive leadership teams is a shortened form of my company name, which is Athena Executive Education. The website is athenaexeced.com. And there's resources, there's all kinds of things on there. If you go into either of those websites, into the resources section, you actually can see my master's thesis is posted online. If you like reading academic papers, if you don't bother. But the whole premise to the Ruby report, how organizations can profit by promoting women leaders, was my master's thesis that I turned into a book. So thank you for that question. First thing you got to do, James, is you got to find something that you love. What do you love most in life? What's your most favorite thing? The power, I think, of what we just witnessed is a little boy, 8 years old, who says, I want to help the world. And right now, in his 8-year-old mind, it's about being a policeman. But there is that desire, there is that passion. So to answer the question, I would say, number 1, never give up on your dreams. Whatever you want, never give up on your dreams. It doesn't always look exactly the way you think it might look, but never give up on it in some way, shape, or form. Always, always, always continue to explore your dream. And then number 2, the magic, the very first thing you said was you got to work hard. And that's what mastery is all about. Find something that you love, be really, really good at it, because those days where, you're tired and you're exhausted and your muscles hurt and your brains hurt and your heart hurts, everything hurts. If you love what you're doing, you will keep going. You will push through. You will be that lotus in the deep mud that we heard about in his speech this morning. The deeper the mud, the more beautiful the lotus. The harder you work, the stronger you get. And that's the secret to being just the greatest thing and helping the world. Pick something you love to do and be really, really good at it. And make sure your dad gets you to join Toastmasters when you're 18 years old. Okay? Yeah, that was sort of like, what's the meaning of life? So a couple of things. So two questions that I ask people, Dory, to find out what they really love is, number 1, what's in your calendar? And number 2, what's in your checkbook? So where do you spend your money and where do you spend your time? And when you look, sort of for patterns, you can see some themes. So that would be sort of the first 2 questions. Third question is, what games did you play as a child? What games did you play as a child? And when you answer that question, it can be very enlightening. So as an example, I was an only child until I was 16 years old. I had every doll on the planet except Barbie, because like in the 60s, it was very bad to have an anatomically correct doll, and my father would not allow me to have one. So I had every doll except for Barbie, and I was an only child. And I would line up my dolls in the basement, and I would teach them what? Math. I would teach them math. And my mother loves to tell the story because I could never get any of the neighborhood kids to play with me, because this is her version of the story. I swear. All I ever wanted to do was play school. I only ever wanted to do math class, and I always had to be the teacher. So what games did you play as a child? And then outside of that, Dory, I would say try and combine things. So as an example, I was a leadership trainer in a company called ADP. It's a very big company in the US. I was in ADP Canada. So financial services, math, teacher, leadership. And I was able to take, sort of my love of, math, because I could understand the technology and the numbers and the people, and I was teaching. So is there something that your sister could do to combine multiple things? Because when you get into it and you're doing it, it can be helpful. So that's a quick answer. Every single guest who attends your meeting, at the end of that meeting, you should invite them to join the club. You should also have a paper, well, unless they're online. If they're in person, you should have a paper membership application. You should also have, even if it's just one page, one sheet, something that says, how much will it cost me to join? If I join in this month, it'll cost me this much. If I join in this month, it'll cost me this much. Because in that moment, the moment at the end of the meeting where a guest is the most enthusiastic, the most excited, that's the moment where you say, we are so glad that you were here as a guest. We would love for you to come and join our club. To give you to help you make the decision if our club is right for you, here is a membership application, because you want them to see what that application is. Here's how much it costs to join our club, because I need to know from a financial perspective how much it's going to cost me. And you have that personal invitation. We also, we're not printing the Toastmaster magazine anymore, but if we would gather our Toastmaster magazines, and every guest got a Toastmaster magazine. Because you can then see through that magazine that this is a professional organization. We are good at what we do. So for sure, at the end, ask them to join. Now that's what happens at the end. At the very beginning, how you treat a guest has a lot to do with whether or not they will accept that invitation to join. When they walk in the door, does somebody greet them? Do you sit them beside a Toastmaster who is friendly and will talk to them and, explain what is all this clapping about? What is this formality and the this and the that? Somebody to explain and answer all of those things so that they feel, you want them by the end of that 1 hour or 2 hours to feel as though this is the place that I want to be. Because then at the end of the meeting, you hand them that form, you hand them the thing that I don't care how much it costs. What? It only costs, $100 or $150. Well, in Canada, it's like way up there for, I don't know what you guys pay, right? Like $100 to join this, like I'm in, right? Because that's like for a year. Is this a month? No, that's a year. A year I get to do this. So how you treat a guest. Okay, so number one, invite them at the end. Number two, treat them like gold when they walk in the door. And number three, put on a quality meeting. Right. It doesn't matter what else you do if you do not have a quality meeting. This meeting this morning that I attended, Harpeth of you, the meeting yesterday that I attended online, quality meetings, speakers, table topics, introductions, handshaking, all that stuff, a quality meeting. And those to me are the 3 secrets to converting a guest to a member. So, ladies and gentlemen, it has been an absolute pleasure spending the day with you. It is my formal international director visit. And so I bring to you greetings from Toastmasters International and World Headquarters. I have had the incredible opportunity, not only in my years as Toastmaster, but certainly in the year that almost a year that I've spent serving you as International Director, to really get to know the people at World Headquarters. And believe me, please, when I say that there is an incredible team working very, very hard. Have things gone perfectly for the last number of years? No, they have not. But is there a dedicated group of people at that building in World Headquarters who have passion for Toastmasters? Yes, yes, and yes. So hello and greetings, and District 63, we absolutely love you. The image on the right is what you see when you get off the elevator at the lobby at World Headquarters. You are greeted with a really nice environment where there are multiple things, memorabilia from years gone by. It's fascinating. The image on the right is the lectern and the club banner for the Toastmasters Club at World Headquarters. They have a Toastmasters Club there, and the staff goes to Toastmasters. To me, that is very, very important, that the people who helped you run our organization actually are part of our organization. It has been just an incredible year and an incredible journey. If there were any truer words, they come from the lips of the very first female Toastmaster ever in the history of Toastmasters International. Helen Blanchard joined Toastmasters when Toastmasters was a male-only organization. She joined under a fake name, a male name. And shortly thereafter, women were permitted to join Toastmasters. But here's what Helen said. If you are going to get out of Toastmasters, all that there is to get out of Toastmasters, then you will never get out of Toastmasters. It has been a pleasure and an honor, and I thank you so much.